Welcome to the new series where we dive into the F1 circuits. This week we'll be looking at Bahrain, but more specifically, the Bahrain International Circuit. Let's dive in.
Bahrain is the third smallest nation in Asia after the Maldives and Singapore. The kingdom is only 780 square kilometres in size and has a population assumed to be about 1.7 million. That's roughly just over a ninth of the population of London.
The 16th held Bahrain International Circuit, or the Gulf Air Bahrain Grand Prix, as it is officially known as. It is located in Sakha, Bahrain. If you cannot tell by the track, it is located in the desert area of the southern governorate of the Kingdom of Bahrain, located in the Arabian Gulf.
Quick facts about Bahrain. Did you know the F1 circuit is 5.412 kilometres and is actually 5 metres shorter than the original layout from 2004? The total race length is 308.328 kilometres, with 57 laps making up the total race. Last year, the fastest lap in the race was set by Max Verstappen with a 1:32.014, which Lewis Hamilton was 4.75 seconds quicker on pole.
First ever Bahrain GP was held on the 4th of April 2004. It also made history by being the first ever race to be held in the Middle East. It was given an award by the FIA as the best organised Grand Prix as well. To commemorate the first ever GP, in 2014 they switched it up and held a night race under the floodlights. Since then, all the races have been held the same. By doing a night race, it has become the second GP to do a night race, the first being Singapore. The circuit was designed by the same architect who designed the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. The circuit cost approximately 56.2 million Bahrain dinars, or about 150 million US dollars, to construct. It has 6 separate tracks, including a test oval, a drag strip. The surface of the track is made of Gaiwaki aggregate and is shipped to Bahrain from a quarry in Shropshire. The same material is used at Yas Marina Circuit.
Right, let's look at the different layouts of this track. The Grand Prix circuit, from 2005 to now, has a track length of 5.412 kilometres. It's roughly about 3.3 miles. It has 15 turns in it and a race lap record of 1:31.447, set by Pedro de la Rosa in his McLaren in 2005. The outer circuit has a track length of 3.543 kilometres. It's roughly again 2.2 miles, with 11 turns and the race lap record set as 55.404 by George Russell last year in his Mercedes. The endurance circuit from 2010 has a track length of 6.299 kilometres. It's nearly 4 miles, with 23 turns and a race lap record of 1:58.287 set by Fernando Alonso in a Ferrari in 2010. The original Grand Prix layout from 2004 has a length of 5.417 kilometres, again 3.3 miles, with 15 turns and a race lap record of a 1:30.252 set by Michael Schumacher in 2004 in his Ferrari. The paddock circuit has a track length of 3.823 kilometres, which is roughly 2.3 miles, with a number of turns being 10. Finally, the Oasis or inner circuit has a track length of 2.55 kilometres and is roughly 1.5 miles, with the number of turns being 8.
The 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix took place on the 29th of November. It was later than previously expected due to the global pandemic, and has also led to the outer circuit being used for another race the following week. The race was most remembered by the accident of Grosjean in lap 1. Other notable things that occurred was Kvyat receiving a 10-second penalty due to the collision with Stroll on the first lap of the restart. Stroll was flipped upside down, but not harmed. Bottas received a puncture under the safety car, meaning that he had to pit. Perez, who was third on the 54th lap, he then had a car engine failure and the car caught fire, leading to the marshal crossing the track. Hamilton won the race, with Max in second, Albon gaining third place due to Perez's car issues, Alex Albon becoming the first Asian driver to score more than one podium finish.
Last year at Bahrain, one of the most surreal crashes in modern F1 history took place. Haas driver Romain Grosjean clipped the AlphaTauri AT01 of Daniel Kvyat on the first lap of the race. He lost control of his car and it collided with the crash barrier, travelling at nearly 200 kilometres per hour with an estimated force of 67 Gs. The car had completely split in half, with the front end wedged into the barrier and the rear being cleanly torn off. Thankfully, the driver's compartment protected Grosjean from the impact. For 28 seconds, we were all watching, waiting for a sign of life, and suddenly Grosjean leapt from the car completely unaided. The race was then suspended for 80 minutes as the debris was cleared and the destroyed metal barrier was replaced in line with the concrete blocks. Grosjean was treated only for second-degree burns on his hands, as his helmet also protected him from inhaling any of the smoke. The crash was later confirmed not to be a serious accident, thankfully. The halo was the greatest thing brought to Formula 1, is what Grosjean said from his hospital bed, and that without it he wouldn't be here to speak to you today. It must be remembered that when the halo was first introduced to Formula 1, Grosjean was one of the people that stood against it. However, after seeing the positive impacts that this does and brings to the safety of the drivers, it's undeniable that they need to stay.
Grosjean was taken to the track medical centre, then to Bahrain's Defence Force Hospital by helicopter for further treatment. The remaining 19 drivers and all 10 teams gave a round of applause in the pit lane. The race is known today as a miracle in the desert due to Grosjean's escape from the crash. F1's managing director Ross Brawn said the crash would be investigated and the credit to the halo protection device prevented the Frenchman from dying.
The most recent two crashes involving the barrier were actually in 1973 and 1974 at the United States Grand Prix, where sadly Francois Chevert and Helmut Koenig were respectively killed as a result of their crash. The most recent similar crash fire occurred when Gerhard Berger crashed in 1989 at the San Marino Grand Prix. While at the 1994 German Grand Prix, a fire comparable to what we saw happen to Grosjean was started when 2.5 litres of petrol leaked during a pit stop for Jos Verstappen.
Bahrain has become known for its controversy, mainly about human rights. This has impacted F1 in many different ways. The Bahrain Grand Prix, scheduled for the 13th of March 2011, was cancelled due to the 2011 Bahrain protests. On the 3rd of June, the FIA decided to reschedule the race for the 30th of October. A week later, FIA announced a cancellation of the 2011 race. Damon Hill called for Formula 1 not to reschedule, saying that if the race went ahead, we will forever have the blind association with the respective methods to achieve order.
Bahrainian Grand Prix has not been without controversy. In 2012, human rights activists called for the complete cancellation of the event because of reports of excessive force by authorities, including torture in detention. Anonymous launched on the 21st of April 2012 Operation Bahrain, which threatened Formula 1 representatives with cyber attacks. Hours later, the hackers took down F1Racers.net after launching a distributed denial of service attack on it. As a result, the 2012 Grand Prix reverted to using the 15-corner Grand Prix circuit configuration last used in 2009, instead of the endurance circuit configuration used in 2010. It was the first time since 2009 that Bahrain had held a Grand Prix with a 15-turn circuit since 2010. Things have become increasingly more complicated for Grand Prix being held in Bahrain, especially since 2017, where there was protest against it. Take, for example, the case of Najjar Ahmed Youssef, who served time in prison and has claimed while she was there to be physically and sexually abused for criticising it on social media. To this day, human rights organisations continue to criticise the Formula 1 group and the FIA for refusing to follow their own statement of commitment to the respect of human rights. In 2018, Formula 1 finally admitted concern for Youssef after the continued public and media pressure that was being placed upon it. However, there has been no known follow-up since.
Bahrain announced as hosting two races back-to-back in November 2020. Human rights groups says the Bahrain became a focal point of protests in the country. Seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton issued a warning to the FIA to deal with human rights issues in countries it visits. Bahrain government denies allegations of sports washing.
Thank you for watching our breakdown of the Bahrainian Grand Prix track. Our new podcast is now available on platforms such as Spotify, Google, and many more to come in the future. We're really happy and excited about the response we've gained so far, and we cannot wait to see what the first race of the season brings for us to discuss on our newest podcast, Chassis Chatter.
We post our podcast on YouTube too. We are also planning more videos like this and other videos about F1 soon.
Thanks for watching this video about the Bahrain Grand Prix track. Remember to like and subscribe and to turn on your bell notifications for our channel to make sure you get told about all things Kerbshaw F1.
You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at Kerbshaw F1 for more F1 and behind the scenes.